Parliament, as I congratulate the Honourable Member for bringing this particular report to the House, Pan-African Parliament was a great mind and great thinking by the leaders then who envisaged that we should bring an African bloc in place to make resolutions that actually empower African independent states, especially when they are negotiating at the international front or making a push to realize any benefit or defend the rights, both economic, social, and other forms of rights of the people. Pan-African Parliament must be closely related to the history of Pan-Africanism itself, which had the traditional original leaders who fought for African independence, like Kwame Nkrumah, maybe Jomo Kenyatta and others as founder members. But this is a movement that had a very long history emanating from the black Americans who were in America, like W.W. Du Bois, and many others who fronted the idea that Africa must be a proud nation with proud countries and with independent mind, pushing their policy independently without influence of the Europeans. That particular time, Honorable Speaker, they were also inspired by the Eurocentric scholars who had defined Africa as a dark continent. The other day I saw one member of Parliament speak about that. There was a historian by the name William Travaropa who, when asked whether there was anything in Africa, he said, "There's nothing in Africa," but for Travaropa it was just darkness. So when the first Pan-Africanists came up within the continent, their first business was to establish the independence of African states, which they indeed did. Now, they later on created the Organization of African Union, which unfortunately did not pick up very strongly. And for how long during those days when we had the A-level history, you would get this question with 50 marks, that OAU is as a dog that is sleeping without teeth to bite. Later on, the creation of the Pan-African Parliament was actually supposed to bring the African member states to a level of having a stronger negotiating voice with other continents and other powers, not only limited to rights, which I've seen here as recommendations, but also economic decisions like trading rights, economic blocks, currency, and other things that would make the continent very, very strong. I think the advent and trials by the late Libyan leader to form the African Union was a very serious step to try and strengthen Pan-Africanism. I therefore welcome the Pan-African Parliament, but it has a lot to do in terms of making Africa to be a strong bloc. In this report somewhere, I realized that the mover had this feeling that to strengthen even this parliament, we possibly need to have the representatives who sit in the regional bloc like the East African Parliament, the one that is based in Dar es Salaam, Arusha, in Tanzania, whichever way, as the members who will be the ones who should go to the Pan-African government. That would completely lose the spirit of Pan-African Parliament as intended from the history of Pan-Africanism. This Pan-African Parliament is supposed to have representation from the member states. And if there are regional issues that need to be negotiated, then networking among the member states, like if the Eastern region, those member states in the East African community, or for economic matters, the economic body that we used to call ECOWAS, and West Africa could do the same through their own regional bodies. East Africa is actually PT, I'm very sorry. Let me correct myself. But ECOWAS is for West Africa. So they would then network within their regional bodies so that they have their point and their drive firmly put in place. But let the representation come from each member state, because that is where now the Pan-African Parliament sits and is respected as a parliament sitting for African nations, not with regional representation, but member states representing the interests of Kenya, Tanzania, and other African states as they are. So there I would wish to really reiterate that it's very important that the representation is directly from the member states.
Order, Honorable Omboko. Honorable Muliungi, where did you come from to this side? You know, we can't give our new members, you know, habits other than those prescribed in the standing order. It is up to the other end. And you don't cross as you go. Proceed, Honorable Omboko.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for maintaining very, very good order within the House. You know, if we don't do that, then we shall lose the House in terms of its respect. So, Honorable Speaker, I was saying that the Pan-African Parliament has a lot of work to do. Number one, on the issue of labor, they have to legislate quickly to make sure that there is a cross-border movement and agreements that will allow free movement of labor from one state to another. And even go further to legislate within their different regions to allow free movement of labor without a lot of tariffs, including the work permits, which are making it difficult for labor to move, for instance, between Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and the neighboring states. And that is urgent, because one big resource that the African nation still enjoys is human resource and labor. And that's why you will find that the multinational companies will always come to Africa, because there's cheap labor. So the cheap labor is available for foreigners, but the cheap labor is not available for the African states themselves, because there are too many barriers that limit on transfer of labor from one country to another. We cannot say to mention the issue of currency. In fact, this is where finally the rubber will hit the road. If it can legislate so that we start having a common currency between or among the African states, even if we were to begin with a few, then that is how we shall solve the problem of the dollar being as a good of serious scarcity like it is now. Honorable Speaker, today, yesterday, when the Prime Cabinet Secretary was addressing this Parliament, he severally talked about how our dollar stocks are diminishing, and is worried about the dollar stocks. It is because that the dollar is being used by a number of many states which are forming what is called the United States of America. And therefore it's a very strong currency. So if they can bring a common currency which can actually be used as an African currency to negotiate loans using this particular currency, you can imagine the depreciation that the shilling has now had against the dollar. And that has made even us to pay almost double what we would have paid as foreign debt because of just the depreciation of the shilling that has accrued. So a common currency would be very, very strong for legislation of the Pan-African Parliament to strengthen the region that we call Africa. But then finally, even if, as I see the red light, the political legislation in this Parliament must be serious, so that we finally have leadership that are actually democratic and can respect constitutions of their own countries. And a country that is not respecting their own constitution can even be kicked out of this Parliament and the organization. Because what is hurting Africa most is the politics and the inability of these countries to respect their own constitution. When you look at what is now happening in northern Sudan,
Is that the manner you wanted to conclude, Honorable Omboko? 1 minute to conclude.
So, Honorable Speaker, in my 1 minute, I must say that they must legislate on the politics of Africa so that democracy is upheld, the rights are upheld, and presidents and leaders respect their own constitution of their own countries. This will enable Africa to be peaceful, and therefore, once we are peaceful, we shall be able to be strong economically, strong socially, and even strong on international front when we negotiate for our interests. With those few remarks, I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for adding me that 1 minute. Thank you so much.